And the Cardinals finally snapped their skid. They end the losing streak, beating Milwaukee by a final score of 8-5. Good evening. Welcome to Sports Central Postgame Show. I'm Sarah Daly. That is Ethan Hannaford. Of course, this postgame show is brought to you by Hot Shots. St. Louis is home for all the games, all the time since 1990. Find yours at hotshotsnet.com. And also by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Ethan, not a complete easy win for the Birds there by that final score. A couple of times with Maton, you had to hold your breath. Bases loaded, 2 outs. He got the job done. A couple of Birds stepping up big time and blast an absolute just bomb hit by Gorman off the bottom of the scoreboard. And we'll take it. At least we're not taking or losing 3 or 4 to the Brewers, considering tomorrow is the 4th game. So we still have a chance, but we're not being swept.
That was a fun baseball game. That's back-to-back games that I think have been really competitive, very entertaining baseball games. And today had the fireworks along with it, which definitely added an extra piece of the puzzle that you don't see as much with those division foes as you used to, because they just don't play each other quite as often with the schedule change that we saw Major League Baseball go through a couple years ago. But that was a fun baseball game. Everything that went into it, the Cardinals got pitching for the most part. The bats definitely awoke, and that was refreshing to see. And overall, the Cardinals have a chance now to split a series. And with as ugly as everything was in the first 2 games of this series, you have a chance to walk away from Milwaukee with a deep breath and go into that off day and try to regroup for the second half of July. If you're Ollie Marmol, if you're the Cardinals, you will definitely take that, no doubt about it.
Well, Ollie wasn't taking many of the calls today. He wasn't a happy fan with a lot of what was going on behind the plate. A few words exchanged, a couple of warnings after a couple of players hit. So, you can express a little bit of frustration there, and I think deservedly so. I'm not going to spend too much time on Blue and the crew, but, it does get frustrating when calls aren't going your way.
Yeah, absolutely. And, me and Brendan Schaefer talked about it this morning on Card Central 365 when, we asked the question, could we see Marmol get ejected in the next day or two? We know, obviously, about the infamous ejection last year in Milwaukee on Mother's Day. And the Cardinals had been in a similar skid prior to that, and things completely flipped after he got ejected. They won that game. They ended up going on their best run of the year, right? So we wondered maybe being back in Milwaukee, if he gets rung up, and you wondered if he was going to get run from this one because of the way that it started off. But overall, I thought that the way that the home plate umpire, forgetting the name off the top of my head, went about things today he did a really good job. And, Marmol came out during in between innings or during a commercial break, and Chip and Brad explained a little bit of that. And Jim Hayes also put a picture on Twitter of, him interacting, sharing his frustrations about some of those missed calls with the umpire, but them also being heard. So, that's the way it should be, right? It's a job well done by the home plate umpire today. And so I mean, I understand, on days like this where you've lost 6 straight, you want to back your guys in, especially when the offense is having the struggles that they are. You want to give them you don't want umpires make it even more difficult. Fortunately, we're not looking at today's game and saying, well, that was the takeaway, that was the narrative, as umpiring didn't make it any easier. The Cardinal bats were able to get going. And a lot of lefties in the lineup today. It definitely helped getting Jordan Walker back. We'll talk about that, I'm sure. But a lot of lefties in this lineup, and they performed very well this afternoon. An encouraging sign for St. Louis fans, no doubt.
Mason Windu, thanks for the comment. I like the hat as well. It's one of my faves, little throwback of the Birds. But you mentioned some of the offense and the big outbursts. They scored 8 runs on 9 hits and the timely homers, some clutch extra base hit knocks. And offense just seemed to be back in gear considering the 3-2 loss last night. It was a bit of a letdown. They were so close and just couldn't quite get it done. But how about on the bump? Andre Palante's quality start, again, not exactly as deep as you'd like to see him. It really kind of fell off for him in his last couple of pitches. But for the most part, he was lights out. A no-hitter through the first 3, I believe it was, keeping the Brewers off balance. He provided a little bit more depth, and hopefully he continue on that pattern because we need a couple of solid starts out of these starters, not something that's going to be a roller coaster of up and down.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at Andre Palante's start today, I break it up into part 1 and part 2. The first 4 innings were excellent. We've seen him continue to make some adjustments. We know that in recent outings. The teams get a hold of him early in games. It's when he feels like he's been having the most struggles as of late. And he was able to work around the leadoff walk in this one. Struggled locating in the first inning, but was able to get a big strikeout of Yelich. We know that I think Frelick stole a base, I'm pretty sure, in there as well. So a nice job working out of a little bit of traffic in the first. After that, second, third, and fourth inning, he was dealing through 4 innings. He had allowed that 1 run on the passed ball. Pages should be making that play, wasn't able to. And then 7 strikeouts up to that point. Things got a little bit messy in the 5th inning, but it's one of those innings, right, where I'm not concerned about it. When you look at the overall line score for him, it's not great. 4 1/3, 4 hits, 3 earned runs, 4 runs, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. It's okay, but you'd like for him to go deeper into this game. The problem is that you were getting to the heart of the lineup, and it had already been a bumpy inning. But when you break down that inning, like play by play, as I scroll to it here, make sure, let's see, we're at the 5th inning here. We're gonna go just piece by piece here, okay? So it started off with let's see, the first one was, okay, here we go. Bryce Terang, soft single to the right side. That ball was is a ground ball that made its way through, seeing eye ground ball. The next one was Caleb Durbin's walk. Andre got completely squeezed on that. That should have been strike 3. The next one was a sacrifice bunt, so there should have been 2 outs and 1 runner on at this point. Sal Frelick hits a soft liner double down the left field line. I think it was an exit velo of 80 miles per hour. It's like 30th percentile for Frelick. So the ball wasn't hit hard, just kind of made its way through. And then some pretty good contact made by Churio to left center, and that was the end of the line for Palante. Most of the contact made in that inning was soft. If he gets that 1 call, then you don't even get to that point probably. So I'm not super concerned about it. It's one of those things, right, with a guy that gets a lot of contact and relies on the ball being put in play, where this is just one of the cons of it, is sometimes you're going to have some of those kinds of innings where, guys find ways to reach base even if they aren't putting together hard contact. Palante today had the swing and miss, though. He got 7 strikeouts through the first 4 innings, as mentioned. Just a lot of what to me felt like bad luck in that 5th inning, but simultaneously, it's one of the things that you have to. It is the con of having a pitcher that tends to not get a lot of swing and miss, and we saw it in that 5th inning. Fortunately, the bullpen came up big. I know they put themselves in a little bit of trouble a couple of times, but Kyle Leahy did a great job working out of trouble in the 5th inning and closing the book on Palante's outing. And then everyone to follow, there was a little bit of trouble here and there, a lot of traffic, but if you can get out of it, then you can get out of it.
Yeah, Maton coming up big with those 2 strikeouts with bases loaded and 2 outs. So, of course, that was, shutting down a lot of opportunity there for the Brewers. But those scoreless frames from the bullpen really halted Milwaukee's comeback, and that's going to be critical moving forward, something we don't see too often out of the bullpen. And as Martinez says, Palante should never face a lineup 4 times in a game. Valid point. Very valid point. You should never go through that quick. Of course, Contreras with the home run and the back and forth couple of players getting hit intentionally, so to speak. Brad Thompson mentioned something playing eye for an eye. Sometimes he's not a fan of the warnings. I kind of agree. I mean, that's part of the game, right? Like, you're going to play the game. Everyone's going to have their things. And then, of course, Contreras hits a home run and gives the long stare down into the dugout as he trots around the bases. So a little attitude there. And then, the Brewers give it right back. So it was a fun game. It was exciting. It was the way baseball should be played. It was fun to watch, a lot of action, nothing completely just shut down, a lot of back and forth, still competitive, and the Cardinals hung on. So that's really good to see, especially given the slump they were in. They needed to break the skid with style, and today was a perfect example of that.
Yeah, I would like to hear some thoughts from the fans in the chat on everything we saw as far as the fireworks go today, because we saw a lot of them. Just to walk it through, if you didn't happen to see it, a simple ground out in the 3rd inning. Wilson Contreras, the play is made in plenty of time, but he takes a step back as he's going to throw it around the horn. And when he's taking that step back onto the foul line, the runner, I believe it was Durbin, trips as he steps back. And the Brewers dugout did not take kindly to that, especially Rhys Hoskins. And Contreras was immediately saying, obviously nothing intentional there. I can't say if he apologized or not, but clearly there was hey, that was not meant to happen. The next inning, Rhys Hoskins gets hit by a pitch. It hits the knob of the bat, but it catches his pinky that was on the end of the bat, or I guess hanging over the knob. Obviously, that never feels good. But clearly the conversation between Contreras and Hoskins continues when Hoskins is at first base. The next inning, then, Wilson Contreras comes up to the plate, and Jose Quintana beans him on the shoulder. He goes and he retreats and picks up the baseball and puts it in Quintana's glove and pats him on the shoulder and trots down to first base. Total Wilson Contreras move. I thought it was hilarious. And then 2 batters later, karma's a you-know-what. Nolan Gorman sends a bomb to right center field that ends up scoring Contreras and himself and another run as well. And it ended up being the dagger up to the, in the game. That was the biggest difference, was that 3-run home run. And let's see. And then the final piece of the fireworks, right, was Wilson Contreras homering in the top of the 9th inning and giving quite a long stare down to the Milwaukee dugout. A slow trot around third, got those bird flaps flying. So that was a lot of fun. I want to hear some of the fans' thoughts. Bill saying, sorry, that was bad on Contreras. I'm not sure what specifically he's referring to, if he was referring to him stepping back accidentally or him kind of looking at into the dugout. So maybe get a little more specific there, Bill, so I can know what you're talking about. Rob was a big fan of it. We'll see if anything. I'm still waiting for more chats. Let's hear those thoughts on that. I thought that was pretty fun. Mizzou saying Milwaukee is such a petty team. Hoskins is the ringleader and always has been. So clearly there is no love lost, with the fans of Milwaukee and just with Milwaukee in general. And that's how it's supposed to be, right? In division contests like that. So this was a fun one to me. Cards get the last lap today, and hopefully tomorrow they can complete this series with a split.
And we've seen a couple of mentions of Durbin leaning in. I have to agree with that. I felt like when they showed the replay kind of in slow-mo, his elbow kind of leaning forward a little bit. Of course, Mason Windu mentioned MLB lets all the players do what Durbin did. No apparent penalty for that, which we've seen players lean in before. But I mean, this one, I didn't see it right out of the gate, as far as like as it was live. But then when they showed the replay, his elbow definitely came up and leaned in. But you do what you do to get things going, right? I mean,
yeah, there was nothing intentional about that. That was a curveball that missed a little bit up and in, and it did look like Durbin leaned into a little bit. I imagine that the argument would have been, well, he was turning away while he was, while he was leaning in, but he was still clearly leaning in. So fortunately, though, right, it doesn't end up affecting the Cardinals. They're able to work through a couple of those jams that they put themselves in. Samuel asking if Ollie got tossed today. He did not get tossed, although we thought perhaps early in the game that it was heading in that direction. Both teams did get warnings today, and I have to imagine that the umpire crew will definitely be very attentive to some of the drama that occurred in the game today. Sarah, I thought another really important part of this afternoon's game, as I mentioned a moment ago, was the way that the Cardinals left-handed hitting did against a left-handed pitcher in Jose Quintana, a guy that's had some success against them in the past, throws a lot of junk, doesn't throw very hard. That tends to be something that's given St. Louis hitters issues in the past. 6 RBIs today against the lefty out of your 8. I'll take that any day of the week. And it's encouraging to see guys like Victor Scott get going, as well as, of course, Nolan Gorman had a big day. So great to see some of those guys get going. Burleson also 2 for 5, had the first RBI of the game. Overall, it's exactly what I've talked about here these last couple of episodes, whether it be on Card Central 365 or on the post-game shows. It's part of adjusting to the game. And a lot of these guys are so young, right, that they're still learning what that looks like. It's the ebbs and flows of the game. And for the people that are the regulars in here, you're probably getting tired of me saying that. But like today, we experienced the positive of that, right? We saw like Nolan Gorman take a good at bat. We saw Victor Scott take some good quality at bats against left-handed pitching and get rewarded for it when he gets a pitch that looks good and he's able to do damage with it. That's part of that is the adjustments made back that is required to be successful at baseball at this level. So a nice job to a lot of the young lefties being able to jump on Quintana early. There was a point where you wondered if 7 runs was going to be enough. You hate to even ask that question, but it did end up holding. The bullpen ends up holding, and thanks in large part, right, to the amount of padding that they had.
Yeah, Quintana went the same, 4 1/3 as Palante did, but he gave up 8 hits, 7 runs, 5 of which were earned, 3 walks, only 4 strikeouts, and then of course the 1 home run. So it was nice to see the Birds bats kind of get that starter out early and make them go to their pin, because given it's a 4-game series, they're going to want to get some of those extended arms out early and continue to battle, so hopefully they can split the series, because splitting this series would be absolutely fantastic for the Cards. Their home road performance would be even better. Winning on the road 14-20 at this point shows progress, but we want to keep this momentum to carry on for the Birds. We really want them to keep this up and being better on the road than what they have been.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, when you look in large part, right, to the start to the year that they had on the road was really bad, kind of almost bad luck in the sense of I don't think it was anything specific to being on the road. It just, baseball's weird sometimes. I mean, last year everyone talked about how the Cardinals at the beginning of the year couldn't win the first game of a series. Like sometimes baseball is weird. So I don't think it's I don't know if it's necessarily anything specific about the road. I think the Cardinals just had a really bad start away from Busch Stadium this year. Clearly in May that got figured out and turned around, and a part of this rough stretch here has been on the road as well. So obviously, if you can play 500 baseball away from your home ballpark, you're usually set up for some success. So let's hope that St. Louis is able to get back to that point. I want to point out a comment here made by Bill about Andre Palante. And maybe this is meant to be an exaggeration, because I know there still is some frustration about Palante and some of the work that he has done this year. But I just wanted to point out, when you look at the grand scheme of things and what he has done this year, he has now made, as I take a look in total, this was his 14th start of the year. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. This was his 5th outing this year where he didn't go make it through 5 innings. So is that a higher number than you would like it to be? Yes, yeah. I think it is. But, and like I said, maybe this was a exaggeration. It probably was. But Andre Palante has not been as bad in large part as a lot of people are saying. Not saying it hasn't been amazing here the last couple of months, but there have also been signs of that potential that we know he can be. Well, we saw what he was last year, so let's hope that he can find that. And in a year that's all about runway and giving these guys opportunity, it's a similar spot for Andre Palante. You got to kind of figure out what he is, if he's a guy that can be in your rotation in 2026 or not. But pulling him or yanking him or sending him down to AAA isn't going to do anything for you at this point. So just wanted to mention that real quick. And what other thoughts are do you have on today's ball game?
Well, and then earlier you mentioned, we hadn't really talked about it, a Walker back from rehab assignment and off the IL, so he is back in action. Made a little misstep at a play, and right there, he kind of came forward a little bit. Not sure if it was his shadows or just misread the ball. Ended up going over his head, but I'm happy that he's back. We have another person that another player that we were looking for to be a key contributor. I'm not so sure we've seen that out of him so far this year, so maybe a little bit of rehab and rest was probably a good thing for him. But I'm not really sure where he quite fits into this lineup as far as like a consistent contributor, because we've had some problems with him in slumps at the beginning of the season and really not fully coming out of it.
When it comes to Jordan Walker, you did mention that the misplay in right field. Jordan Walker definitely is our best defensive right fielder. The shadows are extremely tough at American Family Field. They talked about that on the broadcast. Depending on the time of day, once you get into those afternoons later in the games, can get really difficult to deal with that. He took a step in when he should have taken a step back first. But yeah, I expect in large part he's going to continue to play the good quality defense that he has been, that he had been prior to going on the IL. As far as his bat today, he goes 1 for 3, scores a run, walks as well. I liked his at bat in his one single. He jumped on the first pitch, and that's a pitch right in the past that we probably see him roll over on, a fastball that was outside. This one, he attacks right away and he sends it to opposite field. It's a good at bat, nice and simple approach against the lefty. And you talk about this Cardinals team being so left-handed hitting heavy. They desperately needed to get his bat back in there just to be able to have a little bit more of a platoon lineup, rather a little bit of a mix rather than just rolling 6 lefties out there against a left-handed starter. I'm not sure if it's been that much at any point this year, but it's definitely nice to have his bat back. He, in his short rehab, looked good at the plate down in Memphis. So let's hope that, the positive trends that we had been seeing from him prior to being on the injured list continue, and that he's able to build off of that and start to become more and more of what, I think St. Louis is hoping and wanting him to be.
Well, baseball season nearly halfway done because it's almost the All-Star break, but that also means that you need to get in all the action with DraftKings. It's time to step up to the plate with DraftKings Pick 6. Think of DraftKings Pick 6 as your fastball right down the middle. It's the easiest way to play for cash and take a shot at a big win. Cash in your baseball knowledge. New players get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly on just a $5 entry.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
And of course, looking ahead to tomorrow's matchup for the Birds and the Brew Crew, Miles Michaelis, 4-3 with 4.48 earned run average, struggling a bit to find consistency. He had a rough start, but will need to rebound a bit, and hopefully the Birds' bats can stay hot as they were today and help them out a little bit tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, a win today is great, but if you end up losing tomorrow and getting only winning 1 of 4 against Milwaukee, then it kind of feels like, okay, then what does today matter, right? I mean, you never want to get swept on the road, but you really need to finish this. If you need to finish this series out on a high note, you mentioned it, Miles Michaelis going tomorrow for the Cardinals. He's been really good in large part outside of his last outing, so let's hope he's able to bounce back after a tough one against Toronto. They'll be facing off against a right-handed pitcher, Quinn Priester. Has he's got a 3.65 ERA and 61 innings thrown this year, career ERA of 5.25. So let's hope that St. Louis is able to jump on him. Not a lot. A little bit of history against him. Nope, I lied. I was looking at the Brewers' history against Michaelis, which they've had some success against him. Yeah, not a lot of history against this guy. Contreras 3 at-bats, Donovan 3 at-bats. 2 for Gorman, Nootbaar, Pages, 3 for Scott. So anyway, not a lot of experience against this guy, but a guy that hasn't been around that long. So let's hope that the Cardinals are able to jump on him and lock up this series split. And then you get that day off, right? I mean, everything has been looking towards just getting to the day off. The Cardinals desperately need it. A rough stretch of baseball, but it's much easier to go into an off day when you go in on a high note. And as ugly as that 6-game stretch of baseball was for St. Louis, if the Cardinals are able to finish out this series and win 2 of 4, all of a sudden you feel so much better going into the off day. You feel like you can reset and actually get some rest in, and then you can go into a series against the Chicago White Sox, a series that the Cardinals have no excuse to lose in, right? There's no reason the Cardinals shouldn't take that series. And you can go in with a good mindset and hopefully, get back on track as to, what your expectations have risen to be based off of your month of May.
So thoughts on the injury update with Brendan Donovan, because, clearly second baseman day to day, he's a key contributor to the lineup. Do you think this is something a little bit more than what's going on, or you think they're just going to go ahead and take this opportunity to really just give him a couple of days of rest and then go at it? Because for a big toe injury, I kind of feel like this is a little bit lengthier of a time just to have something that's like a little bit of a hindrance.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know, right? I mean, we know that clearly this is something that had been lingering for a while, and it was manageable to play through, and then it wasn't. And we know that he's been wearing the carbon footwear or whatever it's called,
Right.
the last couple of days, and he's been able to take batting practice the last 2 days, as well as take ground balls. That is a good sign. Where they're at right now with him is the longest that they would give it before an IL stint would be to Tuesday. So hopefully we're seeing him play tomorrow. He very well could be in the lineup tomorrow. Maybe they try to give him another day if he's not quite feeling up to it. But I think that with the state of how your offense has been playing as of late, if he's good to go tomorrow, then they're not going to give him any extra days off, because he's gotten plenty, but
Right.
but two, you need his bat in the lineup. He is the identity. He is the heart of your offense and has been all season. So got to get him back in there as soon as possible. Let's hope that he's good to go for it. I know there's been some people. We had some conversation earlier about with Brendan on Card Central 365 about should the Cardinals have just put him on the injured list right away. And I think the hindsight's 2020, right? I mean, it's so easy to say, then like, oh yeah, let's just take him out for 10 days. But let's say he's only out for 3 or 4, then all of a sudden you're without him for almost a week, right? On more than you need to be. So if I don't think the Cardinals expected for him to be out this long. Maybe perhaps they didn't know the severity of it. I imagine that they maybe if they can go back, they would have done it differently, knowing the amount of time that he would have been out. But I think if they would have had an idea, then they probably would have gone about it a little differently. But guess what? They clearly didn't. So let's hope that he's good to go tomorrow, and that we're not even having to have this conversation, because there's no doubt that the last thing the Cardinals need is to be without their best hitter for the next 7 games or whatever it may end up being. You can track back 3 days with the 10-day IL. So it could be retroactive 3 days prior. So let's say if they were to put him on Tuesday, they could basically say that Saturday was the first game that he was on the IL for. So you'd only miss 7, but still, it's 7 more, right, than you'd ideally have him miss him for. So that's the latest update with Brendan Donovan. Fingers crossed that he's all good to go, and that they're not even having to have that conversation.
Well, A6583 Rob beat me to the punch. I was just going to get ready to tell all the fathers that are joining us here this evening, and especially you, Ethan, happy Father's Day. If you are enjoying time with your family or your father or anything that's going on with that, maybe it'll be celebrating Cardinals victory tomorrow. But once again, to all you dads, we appreciate you joining us, everything that you do as well in the father role. So have a great Father's Day.
Yes, absolutely. No, we're thankful for all the pops out there, and let's hope that the Cardinals can give them a nice Father's Day gift, give them a series sweep against a series split against the Brew Crew. Would definitely be a nice treat. Let's hope Miles Michaelis can have a bounce back. Will be interesting to see if something else we didn't mention on. But before we wrap here real quick, Mason Wynn in the leadoff spot today. Obviously got things going at the top to start. Ends up going 1 for 5 today. It'll be interesting to see how the Cardinals go about that leadoff spot here for the next couple of days with them moving Nootbaar out. Does Nootbaar end up, is he end up back in the lineup tomorrow? If not, who do you, well, he's probably not going to be in the leadoff spot either way, but who do you have in that spot with a righty on the mound? It felt like an obvious choice today with a lefty to roll with Mason Wynn there, but who do you go with if not, if it's not Mason Wynn tomorrow? Is Brendan Donovan healthy? Could he be in that spot? Otherwise, you're going to have a very interesting conversation, because there isn't anyone that really profiles necessarily as a leadoff guy at this point outside of Lars Nootbaar, and we know that they're moving him down to make sure that he can try and get things right before they put him back in that spot. So let's hope that the whole situation works out, and it isn't too long before Nootbaar is able to figure it out and get back to the leadoff spot. But it's good for the Cardinals to be able to manufacture some offense and some action at the top of the lineup today. No doubt about that.
Definitely a fun game today as the Cardinals take the victory over Milwaukee by a final score of 8-5. That's Ethan Hannaford. I'm Sarah Daly. We appreciate you joining us here on Sports Central Postgame Show, brought to you by Hot Shots. If you enjoyed the conversation or want to chime in next time, like, subscribe, comment, and we'll see you right back here on the next postgame show tomorrow after the Cardinals, fingers crossed, series split with the Brew.